Have the bells gone for the quarter of the hour yet? I'm not actually sure. They're probably going to go any second. Hello, my name's Robbie Ellis. Welcome to the season finale of the Rush Hour concert series. We began the season as it is ending, facing deathly heat and a climate apocalypse. I am joined by the three members of Trio Diorama who will be performing this concert. What's the concert called again? Celebrations and I had it in front of me. Song and dance. There we are. So we have Nick Photinos, who is the cellist of the group, MingHuan Xu, the violinist, and Winston Choi, the pianist. We got two works on the program, one by a living South African composer and one by a dead German composer, but, well, he wrote some great music in his time. So, Nick, I'll start with you. How long has Trio Diorama been a trio?
Thanks. Well, first of all, it's great to be back here. And kind of an unofficial performance that we had as a trio, also with a violist, was here last year. And that was kind of one of the first times we played. We're a very new trio. I think our debut concert was this January. But we've all played together for years and years. They're also married, so they've played together a lot, and I've also gotten to enjoy playing together with them over many years, and so forming a trio felt like slipping on a really comfy glove. But we've just been kind of performing just this past year.
Do you teach at any of the same schools? I know that I can't keep a track of exactly where you all teach, but do you have any colleges in common?
Well, so we have gigs in common besides the trio. So MingHuan and I are part of the Grossman Ensemble that's at the University of Chicago. Teaching-wise, they do share one particular.
Yeah, both Winston and I would teach at Roosevelt University, which is just a few blocks down south, where we also are running our program. So I'm the director of strings, and Winston's the director of piano. And we've been teaching there for, I know exactly, for me, it's 11 years. That's because that's exactly my twins' age. I remember being pregnant and getting their interview there. My husband Winston's been taught there for much longer, right? It's like so. And Nick, you just recently got a new teaching position. Can't tell everybody about it.
I did just get a new teaching position. I leave tomorrow as professor of chamber music at the University of Cincinnati, of which I'm a graduate. I used to perform as the cellist in 8th Blackbird, and we went there all together as students for their artist diploma in chamber music program back in the late 90s. So it's a really great chance for me to return and to give back.
Well, you have been running a chamber music series up in Ravenswood at the Bethany Church there. Are you still going to run that next season, given that you're going to be based in Ohio?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to be based here,
okay.
But also going down there quite a bit. But yes, the answer to your question is yes. My wife and I run a small chamber music series called Chamber Music at Bethany, which is in Ravenswood at Bethany United Church of Christ. And she actually works a lot with vocalists. I work a lot with a lot of other instrumentalists. And so we tend to craft about 4 concerts a year. The trio's debut was at one of those concerts this past January. So we're going to keep that going.
Cool. Well, let's get to the music. And Winston, I'd like to talk to you because you are also a composer, and the first piece on the program is a contemporary work. It's by Bongani Ndodana-Breen, South African composer from Cape Town. He's said in an interview, "I write classical music with an African twist." He's written an opera about Winnie Mandela, a work for soprano and orchestra about Nelson Mandela, which was written for the Minnesota Orchestra, and his piano trio is called Two Nguni Dancers. So Nguni is kind of a catch-all term for a few different ethnic groups in Southern Africa. So let's say something about the piece. We've got something about a healer and something about a fable, a dance for a children's fairy tale.
It's a wonderful piece of music. We enjoy this work thoroughly. I can speak on behalf of all three of us. We were introduced to this particular composer through Rush Hour concerts, and it's been such a treasure. And any chance when we get to learn a new piece of music, it's a new perspective on life and a new perspective on how a composer interacts with the world and hears music. And the program notes in the program themselves are wonderful. It gives you a lot of insight into the piece. But a few other perspectives, maybe from our standpoint, it's music that may sound very simplistic because harmonically it's circling around the same small set of parameters. It's just a few pitches of simplistic harmonies, but the rhythmic interplay is what's really exciting and interesting. And even then, it can be kind of enveloped within a kind of simplistic sheen to it. Yet at the same time, there's a whole lot of interaction going on, and it's very kind of groove-based, one could say, although a different type of grooving than what we might be used to. But it's wonderful in terms of the folk influences. He writes that there's childlike qualities within the second movement, and it's not programmatic, but you can see little images of different characters dancing around, maybe some supernatural, and just kind of let your imagination carry you in any kind of direction.
Yeah, you mentioned the rhythms more from, of course, he's from South Africa, so Southern Africa, quite different to West Africa. West Africa has informed a lot of the pop rock music that we know, a lot of Caribbean music, but Southern Africa, bit of a different deal. And I came to you as a composer. Before we get to the Mendelssohn, have you been writing anything lately, or you kind of been too busy playing other people's music?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really consider myself a composer.
Well, you have, right?
I would call myself a musician who likes to dabble, and I do enjoy writing. I've written a small handful, less than a handful of pieces, I should say. I would say maybe a bigger passion of mine is arranging, or reimagining, taking things that exist and putting a twist on it.
So what sort of pieces what sort of instrumentations do you like to arrange from and to?
A large part of what my arrangements have been to do with violin and piano, at MingHuan's encouragement, to take something that exists and personalize it, make it something of your own. So yeah, a recent arrangement, which we actually played a year ago, was an arrangement of Bernstein's Somewhere, mixed with Somewhere Over the Rainbow, mixed with a few other tunes put in there. So that's something we've been playing quite a bit. So that's the type of thing I like to do is take existing tunes and see how they can be combined. I'm not trying to necessarily for something clever. It's more to think, is there a meaning between two songs which might seem quite distant, and how I can bring them together.
Let's get on to the Mendelssohn, which is the larger work in the program today. MingHuan, I'm guessing you played this work you probably all have a number of times. Robert Schumann, when it was premiered, a composer colleague of Mendelssohn, praised it as the master trio of our time. Does that hold up as an assessment of the work?
Oh, I would say so, yes. And it's one of the most well-known works for this instrument combination, piano, violin, and cello. And I remember first when I was learning it in college years, I completely fell in love with the piece. I had so much fun learning the piece. I'm so glad, since then I've performed it a number of times, and here we are, we'll be performing it tonight. And there's actually a very fun story about this. It's one of the most well-known violinists, Joachim, actually attended to one of the first premiere concerts. Mendelssohn himself is actually at the piano and with a violinist and cellist, but there were only 2 sheet music for the violin and cello, and Mendelssohn himself didn't have music in front of him. I think he had some sort of pages, but it was really, he performed it by memory because it was his work, obviously. So I thought it was a, fun fact to know.
So I'm a composer too, and when I have to write music for piano, it's just so many notes on the page. It's a lot. I can write a violin line, I can write a cello line, and then you work on a piano line, and you have to cram all these different notes onto just 2 staves because you've got 10 fingers. And this trio is kind of MingHuan, Nicholas, do you feel like it's an even trio in terms of responsibility for the instruments? Because you got a ton of notes, and it seems like a bit of a piano show-off thing with extra violin and cello. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I completely agree. I mean, just the other day he was practicing. I was like, my gosh, this sounds like a piano concerto. We're just at places we're just accompanying him. What do you think, Nick?
I'm glad we don't get paid per note. Because Winston would be making bank, and we would get a couple pennies.
Yeah, it's definitely a tour de force, and Mendelssohn wrote it with himself in mind, and he must have been a fierce player. So one last thing before we go. MingHuan, Winston was talking about that arrangement of Somewhere from West Side Story and Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and that concert, I remember it very well, and I'm just checking in with you to make sure that your violin hasn't been nicked in the last year. Has it been safe and sound for the last 12 months?
It's safe and sound.
Good.
In this building. I'm not going to tell you where, but it's in the building.
You haven't had to call the Chicago Police Department again?
Correct, yes.
Good. That's exactly what we...
Thank you for checking in.
That's exactly what we like to hear about valuable string instruments. If you missed that story, it was in the media, and MingHuan and Winston were performing here last year. Stolen out of your home, and then recovered a couple of weeks later. And the Rush Hour concert last year, we were fortunate enough to have the premiere reappearance of the instrument after it had been recovered. So I'm glad that your instrument is safe and sound. You want to say like the briefest thing about your violin, its provenance, that sort of thing?
Well, it's very dear to my heart, and it was, especially when it was taken away, it felt like I lost part of me. I felt like I lost arm or leg or something, and couldn't breathe. And I am just so happy that it's back. And I feel like I need a voice. The violin needs a voice. I think we're a good pair, and so I'm just looking forward to keep playing on it and keep performing with it.
Well, before I let these three go, I'll just let you know about a couple of upcoming concerts. Tomorrow's Dame Myra Hess Memorial Concert, put on by Classical Music Chicago, features cellist Rainer Crossett and pianist Kwang Hao Huang. Kwang Hao, no stranger to this concert series. Music of Nadia Boulanger, Manuel de Falla, Claude Debussy, Maurice Ravel, and Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco. You can go to that concert in person at the 17th Church of Christ Scientist, or listen live on the radio, WFMT at 12:15 tomorrow. And there's no Rush Hour concert next week because this is the season finale, but come back on Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024, I presume. I'm going to guess that they're going to kick off with the Naperville Consort of bagpipes, banjos, kazoos, and accordions. Probably not. There's probably going to be a violin in the group instead. Anyway, please join me in thanking Nick Photinos, MingHuan Xu, and Winston Choi. Concert starts at 5:45. Hello and welcome to this Rush Hour concert, the season finale, Song and Dance. I'm Robbie Ellis. Rush Hour concerts are presented by Classical Music Chicago and supported in part by an award from the Illinois Arts Council Agency. Rush Hour concerts are produced in partnership with St. James Cathedral. To perform the music today of Bongani Ndodana-Breen and Felix Mendelssohn, please welcome trio Diorama, MingHuan Xu on violin, Nick Photinos on cello, and pianist Winston Choi.